The room went quiet in that ugly way silence does right before something breaks. My dad lifted his glass, smiling like a king, and said, "Your aunt's kids are the only ones here who'll ever make something of themselves. Not like your boy." People laughed. Forks clinked. Someone actually snorted. My 8-year-old son didn't laugh. He shrank into his chair and stared at his plate. So I smiled back and said, "Cool. Then I'll stop paying her $1,600 tuition." My sister froze mid-chew. My dad's hand crushed my arm under the table as he whispered, "Please, not here." My name is Harper Wells. I'm 32, single mother, finance manager, and for the last 3 years, I've been the invisible wallet holding this family together. The dinner was supposed to be low-key. That's what my sister Mia said when she invited us. Just family, just food, no drama. But I should have known better the moment we walked into the restaurant, and my dad barely looked at me. His eyes went straight to my son, Evan, like he was something that needed to be tolerated. Evan is quiet, gentle, the kind of kid who memorizes dinosaur facts and whispers apologies when other kids bump into him. He struggles with reading. He struggles with crowds. But he tries so hard it physically hurts to watch. Mia's kids, on the other hand, are loud, polished, private school perfect. Their uniforms are crisp. Their future already announced in bragging conversations and Facebook captions. And guess who pays for that future? I do. When Mia's husband left, when tuition temporarily became impossible, I stepped in. $1,600 a month. Every month. No contracts. No thank you. Just expectation. At dinner, Dad went on talking about potential, about legacy, about how some kids just don't have it. Each word landed like a slap. Evan's shoulders curled inward. I felt something inside me snap, quietly, cleanly. So I said it. Calm, polite, nuclear. Dad squeezed my arm harder. Mia's eyes filled, not with shame, but panic. Around us, people pretended not to listen while listening to everything. Dad leaned closer, breath sharp. "Harper," he hissed, "you're embarrassing the family." I looked at my son, then at my sister, then at the man who raised me to believe love was something you earned. And for the first time, I realized this dinner wasn't the moment everything went wrong. It was the moment I stopped protecting them. Dad opened his mouth to say something else. And that's when Evan finally looked up and whispered, "Mom, did I do something bad?" I told Evan he didn't do anything wrong. I said it quickly, maybe too quickly, because my voice was shaking. He nodded like he understood, but kids always know when adults are lying to keep things calm. Dinner limped on after that. Plates arrived. Conversation pretended to restart. But the air stayed tight, stretched thin over something ugly no one wanted to touch. This wasn't new. Not really. Growing up, Mia was the miracle child. Straight A's. Soccer trophies. Teachers who used words like exceptional. I was the quiet one. The responsible one. The one who didn't cause trouble, which in our family meant I didn't get noticed unless something needed fixing. When Mia got pregnant young, my parents framed it as a detour. When I got pregnant at 24 unmarried, it was a disappointment. Same situation. Different daughter. After Evan's dad left, I didn't ask my family for help. I worked harder. Night classes. Promotions. Missed birthdays. I built stability brick by brick because I knew no one was coming to save me. Then Mia called me crying 3 years ago. Tuition overdue. Kids about to be pulled from school. Dad said it wasn't wise for him to help financially, but suggested I could, since I was doing well. I remember sitting in my car afterward, engine off, staring at my bank app. I could afford it. Barely. And I thought, family helps family. That's how it started. $1,600 a month quietly disappearing from my account. No acknowledgement. No discussion. Just assumed. When I asked once how long it would be, Mia laughed and said, "Don't be dramatic. It's just money." But tonight, that money suddenly mattered a lot. Halfway through dinner, Mia leaned across the table, voice low and sharp. "You didn't have to say it like that." "I didn't have to insult my child either," I replied. Dad jumped in immediately. No one insulted him. I looked at him. Really looked. The tight jaw. The way he avoided Evan's eyes. You compared him, I said. That's the same thing. Dad sighed like I was exhausting him. Harper, you're too sensitive. You've always been. There it was. The old label. The one that turned cruelty into honesty and pain into overreaction. Mia's daughter whispered something and giggled. Evan flinched. That's when I realized this wasn't just about money or respect. They were teaching my son his place. And suddenly, stopping tuition felt like the smallest possible response. Because if this family was going to make my child feel small, I was done being the reason their kids felt big. We didn't leave right away. That was my first mistake. I should have taken Evan's hand, paid the bill, and walked out while I still had control over my voice. But years of conditioning kept me glued to that chair, the same instinct that always told me to keep the peace, to swallow things for later. Later finally showed up. As dessert menus were passed around, my dad cleared his throat again. Harper, he said, loud enough for the whole table. You need to understand something. I already knew I wouldn't like what came next. You're emotional because you're tired. Single parenting does that. But you can't punish me as kids because you feel insecure about your own situation. Insecure. The word landed hard. I felt heat rush to my face, but I kept my voice steady. My situation? You mean the job that pays for their school? A couple of cousins shifted uncomfortably. Someone coughed. Mia stared at her plate, lips pressed tight, not embarrassed, just waiting for Dad to handle it like always. Dad leaned back, crossing his arms. Money doesn't give you authority over how we talk as a family. No, I said, but it gives me authority over where it goes. Mia snapped her head up. You're seriously doing this right now? Yes, I said, because you've been letting this happen. For years. She laughed, sharp and dismissive. Oh, please. You've always been jealous. Evan's fingers tightened around his napkin. I noticed because I watch him the way other parents watch exits. Always alert, always prepared to protect. Jealous of what? I asked. Your debt. Dad slammed his hand on the table. Enough. The sound made Evan jump. Dad pointed at me. You will apologize. To Mia. To the kids. And you will not bring money into this again. Something inside me went very still. I realized then that this wasn't about misunderstanding. This was about hierarchy. About my role being useful but invisible. Supportive but silent. I looked at Evan. His eyes were glassy. He was trying so hard not to cry. That broke me. I'm not apologizing, I said quietly. And I'm done pretending this is normal. Dad leaned in close, voice low and dangerous. You don't want to do this, Harper. I met his gaze. You don't want me to stop. For a second, I saw fear flicker across Mia's face. Real fear. The kind that only shows up when consequences become real. Dad's jaw tightened. We'll talk about this later. No, I said. We won't. I stood, pulled my card from my purse and paid. My portion only. I took Evan's hand. As we walked away, I heard Mia whisper, panicked. She wouldn't really do it, right? I didn't turn around, because I had already decided something on the drive over. And dinner was just the confirmation. The betrayal didn't happen that night. That would have been too obvious. Too clean. It happened 3 days later, on a Tuesday afternoon when I was at work, balancing quarterly reports, when my phone started vibrating nonstop. Mia. Dad. Mia again. Then a notification from my bank. $1,600. Pending. My stomach dropped. I hadn't authorized it. I logged in fast, fingers cold, and saw the charge marked scheduled recurring. Same tuition account. Same amount. Same confidence. They hadn't asked. They hadn't waited. They just assumed I'd cool down. That I'd forget. That I'd stay in my place. I called Mia immediately. She answered on the second ring, already defensive. Oh my God, relax. Dad said you were just emotional the other night. You charged my account, I said. There was a pause. Then a sigh, annoyed, not apologetic. It's automatic. You've been paying it for years. I told you I was stopping. And Dad said you didn't mean it, she snapped. You wouldn't screw over kids just to prove a point. That word again. Kids. As if Evan wasn't one. As if my son's dignity was a point. I drove to my parents' house, without thinking. Evan was at school. Good. He didn't need to see this. When I walked in, my dad was sitting at the table, calm, composed, like a judge waiting to deliver a verdict. You embarrassed us, he said before I even spoke. You stole from me, I replied. Dad waved a hand. Don't be dramatic. Families share resources. Then why did you hide it? I asked. Mia appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. You're acting unhinged, she said. Everyone at dinner thought so. That's when Dad stood up and delivered the final blow, soft, deliberate, surgical. You need to think about Evan, he said. People already talk about his issues. If you start pulling support from the family, don't expect us to keep defending him. I stared at him. Defending him from what? I asked. Dad didn't answer. He didn't have to. I felt something inside me collapse, not loudly, but completely. The kind of break you don't recover from because you shouldn't. They weren't just disrespecting my son. They were leveraging him. I pulled out my phone, right there at the table, and canceled the payment in front of them. Blocked future charges. Changed passwords. Froze access. Mia screamed. Literally screamed. You can't do this. Dad stepped forward, grabbing my arm again. Harder this time. Harper, he whispered. You're tearing this family apart. I looked down at his hand, then back at his face. No, I said calmly. I'm just done holding it together alone. And that's when I realized. They still thought this was the end. They had no idea it was only the beginning. I cried in my car for exactly 4 minutes. Not the dramatic kind. No sobbing. Just silent tears sliding down while my hands shook on the steering wheel. For minutes for the little girl in me, who kept hoping one day I'd be chosen. For minutes for the version of me that thought money could buy respect if love wasn't available. Then it stopped. The calm that followed wasn't numbness. It was clarity. I wiped my face, checked the mirror, and said out loud, Okay, now we're done. That night, after Evan fell asleep, his dinosaur book still open on his chest, I opened my laptop. Not to rant. Not to vent. To organize. First, I pulled 3 years of bank statements. Every tuition payment. Every transfer. Every temporary expense that somehow became permanent. I totaled it. $57,600. Then I pulled texts, emails, voice notes, all the casual assumptions. Can you cover this month? You're amazing, sis. Dad says thanks. Not one agreement. Not one acknowledgement that this wasn't my responsibility. Next, I checked something I'd ignored for too long. The school's financial agreement. And that's when I smiled for the first time. The account wasn't just linked to my bank. It was listed under my name. Primary payer. Emergency contact. Authorization holder. Which meant something very important. I had access to more than just payment settings. I wasn't going to humiliate anyone publicly. I wasn't going to yell or threaten or demand apologies that would never be sincere. I was going to let systems do the talking. Over the next 2 days, I made quiet calls. Polite calls. Professional calls. The kind that don't raise alarms until it's too late. Then I scheduled lunch with my dad. Just him. I showed up calm. Put together. The version of me he always underestimated. I've thought about it, I said gently. I don't want to tear the family apart. Relief washed over his face. He reached for his coffee. I knew you'd come around. I smiled. I just want things to be fair. He nodded eagerly. Of course. That was the moment I knew he had no idea what was coming. Because fairness cuts both ways. And for the first time, I wasn't planning revenge out of anger. I was planning it with precision. And soon, they were going to learn exactly how expensive disrespect can be. Everything I set in motion moved quietly. No drama. No announcements. Just paperwork, policies, and patience. On Thursday morning, I called the school's financial office. I already knew the woman's name, Linda, from years of emails I'd been copied on but never thanked for. I'm the primary account holder, I said calmly. I need to update some information. She was polite, efficient. She confirmed my identity, then asked what changes I needed. Effective immediately, I said, I'm withdrawing financial responsibility for students not legally under my care. There was a pause. Then, of course, we'll need written confirmation. I sent it while we were still on the call. Next, I requested copies of every receipt and payment confirmation for the last 3 years. Not as a threat, just as documentation. By Friday afternoon, everything was processed, which meant Monday morning would be interesting. I didn't tell Mia. I didn't warn my parents. I waited. Monday, 8:17 a.m., my phone rang.
Mia.
I let it ring. At 8:19, again. At 8:22, Dad. I answered the fourth call, on speaker, while making Evan's lunch. What did you do? Mia screamed. I kept spreading peanut butter. Good morning to you too.
The school called, she said.
They said the account is frozen. That tuition is unpaid, I finished. Correct. Dad's voice cut in, tight with controlled rage. You blindsided us. No, I said. I followed procedure. Mia started crying.
Loud.
Desperate. They're saying the kids can't attend next week. I closed Evan's lunchbox gently. That sounds stressful. Dad lowered his voice. Harper, this isn't funny. I'm not laughing. There was silence. The kind that happens when power shifts. I offered fairness. I continued. You declined. So I removed myself. Mia's tone changed. We can talk about Evan. We didn't mean. Don't, I said sharply. You already said enough. That afternoon I did one more thing. I emailed the family group chat.
Short. Clean.
As of today, I'm no longer financing expenses that involve disrespect toward my child. This is not up for discussion. No insults. No explanations. The responses came fast. Shock. Anger. Guilt disguised as concern. But the real impact didn't hit until Wednesday. When Mia showed up at my door, mascara streaked, voice shaking, saying the words I'd never heard before. We need your help. And for the first time, I got to choose whether to open the door. I didn't open the door right away. I watched Mia through the peephole as she paced, wiping her face, checking her phone like someone might swoop in and save her at the last second. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not helpless, just finally unsupported. I opened the door halfway. What do you want? I asked. She swallowed. Can we talk? I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. Evan didn't need to hear this. They're saying the kids will lose their spots, she said quickly. You know how competitive that school is. Dad's been calling everyone. No one can cover it. I nodded. I know. Her voice cracked. So, you'll help, right? Just this month. I met her eyes.
Why?
She blinked. Because we're family? I let the silence stretch. Was Evan family at dinner? Her mouth opened. Closed. She looked away. Dad pulled up then, tires crunching too loudly against the curb. He got out, jaw set, face red. This has gone far enough, he said. You've made your point. No, I replied. You finally noticed it. He stepped closer. You're hurting children. I didn't flinch. I protected mine. Dad exhaled sharply. You've always been dramatic. But this is cruel. I laughed once.
Soft.
Disbelieving. You threatened my son. His eyes flickered. I warned you. That's worse, I said. Mia started crying again. Just say what you want. An apology? Fine, I'm sorry. I looked at her. Really looked. You're sorry you lost the money. Not for what you did. She didn't deny it. I took a breath. Here's what's going to happen. I'm not paying tuition anymore. Ever. Dad stiffened. You can't mean that. I do. Mia panicked. Then what are we supposed to do? I shrugged. What I did. Figure it out. Dad's voice dropped, venomous. You think you're better than us now. No,